Hello, and welcome to episode 45. Today's episode is one that so many of you have asked for. It's basically what to do if your cat goes missing. And I'm joined by someone truly incredible, lost cat finder Kimberly Freeman. And she has helped reunite cats with their families across nearly every state and over 20 countries worldwide. Join us as we break down what cats actually do when they're lost, the biggest myths that can put them at risk, and the science-backed strategies that will give you the best chance of bringing your cat home safely. If you find this episode helpful, it would mean so much if you would take a minute to rate and review the podcast. It really helps more cat parents find the show. Thanks! Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Hiss and Tell. With me today is Kim Freeman. She is a professional lost cat finder. She has found cats in nearly every state and in 24 countries around the world. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the podcast. This has been like a super asked about topic. What do I do if my cat gets lost? What's a great way to find my cat? So I'm so grateful that you were willing to come in and talk with me. Can you tell me a little bit about how you became a professional lost cat detective?
It kind of started just with my own when I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Clancy, our family cat, disappeared. And I mean, this isn't like the professional beginning, but it's kind of what intrigued me. Clancy was missing for about a week. And one day I was out playing with my brother in the driveway and I heard a squirrel up on the roof scolding. And I looked up to ask the squirrel, "Why are you mad at me?" I saw Clancy's face up in the attic fan up by the top of the roof. So the squirrel was scolding him. And we were shocked. It's like, and my brother's like, "No, that's not him. You're just seeing things." But it was him. He had been up there about a week and really skinny. We never heard him cry. I just saw his little face peeking through like the fan blades.
Yeah.
The big attic fan. So, from then on, whenever, my dad would be out walking with me in the neighborhood, and whenever I saw a lost cat flyer or poster, I'd say, "One day I'm going to find them all." And he's like, "No, Kimberly, you don't realize how many there are." That's sweet. So, flash forward many years and my own cat went missing, Mr. Purr, and I lived on a horse farm.
Mm-hmm.
And next door was this cattle rancher, and he had all of these like container sheds where he would put his equipment, and Mr. Purr had gotten trapped in one of those sheds. So that was my first experience other than Clancy
Got it.
of what it feels like when your cat is missing and the despair and the worry and the fear. And this guy was such a grump. We were kind of scared of him, but I had to ask, to go over and physically search the area because, Mr. Purr didn't miss meal times and I knew something was wrong. And yeah, he was trapped in that shed. So I started doing cases for free just to help people because I was like, the despair and the worry and guilt, it's so devastating.
It's such an awful feeling.
Horrible. And nobody quite gets it until they go through it. So I started, I took training. I don't know if you're aware of Kat Albrecht, but she really pioneered the field. She did missing persons and she had a bloodhound that looked for missing people. And then her bloodhound went missing and she had to use another bloodhound to find him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's when she realized, someone should be doing this. The government, the FBI, everybody jumps in when it's a kid, but nobody's helping out pets and using police procedurals, science to find lost pets instead of, all myths and memes and litter box tricks and, magic wands and animal communicators. So that's what really intrigued me was the science behind it.
Sure.
And the way cats behave. Cat behavior is so different when they're lost and stressed than when they're in the house.
Well, can you talk a little bit more about that? How and why do cats behave so differently when they're lost?
Well, think about when you've moved. That's kind of an example of a cat under stress, right? Or when there's a party and the cat isn't doing their normal things and acting like they normally do. Sometimes they don't want to eat. Sometimes they hide for hours after people have left. Cats just behave differently when they're stressed. I mean, even feral cats, if
Yeah.
something disturbs their environment, they're going to behave differently too. But then, it breaks down into, the skittish, timid cats
Mhm.
versus the more outgoing, bold, gregarious cats. They're going to behave differently
Right.
and hide longer and in different places.
Mhm.
So, yeah, behavior changes so much when a cat's stressed, and lost is kind of the ultimate stress, especially if people have done things like litter box often will attract other cats in to see who's this?
Right.
What's this smell? Who's this new intruder? And then the cat's even more stressed because he got picked on or bullied or chased further away,
Mhm.
by another cat or a scary raccoon they've never seen before. What the hell is that?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
even coyotes sometimes are drawn in by the smell of cat poop.
Mhm.
So yeah, that can make them even more stressed than they were already.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. Steve, who I was telling you about before, my best friend cat who passed, when he was, I'd say like a teen, he got lost just for the day. And it was terrifying because I had in the city where we lived at the time, I had a little yard that was totally fenced in, but he managed to get up over the wall and fall over into the next yard. And yeah, and I, didn't realize for a bit and then just absolutely lost my mind, like covered the neighborhood in flyers and, just offered like a bajillion-dollar reward and was just absolutely, absolutely losing my mind. Then eventually somebody, the super of the building next door was like, oh, I think that cat, I think I saw him in the basement of literally the building next door, which has been my experience. And you can tell me if this is true or not, that when cats are lost, they're, at least in my experience, they're not very far away. He at least was 20 feet away. He had just fallen over this fence. And so I went into the basement of that building and he was just rolling around in like a puddle of oil in the disgusting unfinished basement of this tenement house in New York City. But once he saw me come in, he freaked out. He just really freaked out. Even though we were best friends, he freaked out and he was like hissing and fighting and he was trying to bite me. And I had to towel him to get him in a carrier to get him home. And it was really crazy. And then as soon as we got home, he was fine. It was like nothing had happened. Except then I had to give him a bath to get all the oil off, which was, he did
Yeah.
not love that. He didn't love that. But it was really such an awful, terrifying experience.
Every story is another data point. And yes, sometimes they are close by. Was he indoor only?
Yes. Except for they had access to our little yard, which they only ever had access, like, obviously when we were home and supervised, and then I must have just had my eyes off of him for a second, and he fell over this wall.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yes, very stressful. A
yes.
lot of behavior comes into play there.
Mhm.
Cats when they're in a new environment, and he was stuck in there, right? He couldn't get
Mhm.
home. He was trapped in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you approached him. All he knew was, and the smell of all that oil, probably he
Yeah.
couldn't pick up your scent. He just knew something big is coming. And cats just, you tried to pick him up. I can't
Right.
tell you how many people have found their cat and then got bitten and scratched when they
Yeah.
tried to pick him up. And this was a sweet cat who would never do that
Of
normally.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, it's predator prey instincts kicking in, and they are just fighting for their life. It's
Yeah.
nothing personal.
Oh, no, I didn't take it personally. It was just, and this was way before I knew anything about behavior. This was when I was still a photographer, and I was just acting on stupid instinct, like, "Oh, it's Steve, I'm gonna go grab him." Dumb, but no, didn't take it personally. It was not, he was just being reactive, and fair enough. But it was interesting the second he got home, he was just like, yeah, whatever." Like, immediately
Like
fine,
nothing.
fine and filthy, and yeah, just, cool, no, whatever. But, I'll tell you, it never happened again.
Mm.
Never, ever, ever happened again. So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you find that people have about what a lost cat might do?
Most people assume the cat will come when they call,
Right.
right? And that, they always come running in the house when I shake the treat jar. I'll just
Mhm.
walk around the neighborhood shaking the treat jar. Those are two big misconceptions. The litter box
Right.
is another one. Oh, just put out
Mhm.
the litter box. I think also people spend way too much time and have too much hope in posting on social media. I mean, the odds of someone seeing your cat who also happens to follow a lost pet page
Yeah.
and who happens to look into, I mean, it's just the odds are pretty slim. They also have a lot of faith in microchips. Oh, he's chipped. Somebody will know
Yeah.
I mean, he's found, those are all kind of common things. The litter box, I think, is finally that myth is getting exploded a little bit, and people are realizing that it's superstition, not
Mhm.
science. But yeah, those are the probably biggest ones, the biggest misconceptions. They
So,
also, let me say, will assume if
yeah.
they've been missing. I went back over my cases to
Mhm.
figure out some data. People will assume after 3 days their cat is dead.
3 days?
3 days to a week, they think all hope is lost, must be dead. Yeah, it's crazy.
That doesn't
Now,
make it cats can survive, like, that doesn't make any sense.
I know cats can survive way longer than that without food.
Yeah, it's interesting when I talked to, last season, I talked to one of the guys from Canopy Cat Rescue,
Yeah, Sean?
and he was talking about a similar thing about how some of the cats that he's rescued have been up in a tree with also no food, no water for a week, 2 weeks, like, long times that cats can go. Obviously, they should not go, but that they can really survive for a long time without food and water.
Well, there's always bugs in trees, but yes.
Yeah, but his point was that these cats are they're so stressed up there, like, clinging to the top of a tree that even though they could possibly lick condensation from leaves or they could possibly, but they're probably not because they're so highly stressed. It's just an interesting point because I think a lot of even there's a lot of stuff out in even in the literature saying, cats have to have food and water, and after 3 to 4 days, they will start to have, kidney and liver failure because they need, like, protein constantly. So
Yeah,
it's interesting to hear these kind of anecdotal cases sharing the
yeah.
survival that's possible.
When Mr. Purr went missing, I was a little less worried because he was kind of tubby. And it actually turns out that the cats that are a little overweight are more prone to hepatic lipidosis if they
Interesting.
don't eat for 3 days. Yeah, you would think that those fat reserves would keep them good for a little while, but it's
Hmm,
more dangerous. Yeah.
interesting. I read years ago this really interesting book called The World Without Us, and it's essentially what would happen to the earth if people were suddenly wiped off the face of the earth, right?
Huh?
And it takes you through the science of, what would happen to buildings and what would happen to the ecosystem. And then it goes through what would happen to companion animals and to all animals. And the really interesting thing was that the author did not think that most dogs would survive. That at first they could form kind of roving gangs with other dogs, but eventually they would not be able to survive. But who would survive easily? Cats. Easily, no problemo, cats would survive. So it is really interesting to kind of think about all of that stuff together and think about cats as survivors as well. Not to say that your indoor only cat who is not used to that lifestyle will fare great if they suddenly get lost, like run out the door and get lost.
They will figure out a system and adapt.
So, I wanted to ask you, why is it that so many cats just hide silently when they hear their people calling for them? Is it just the stress?
It is mostly the stress.
Yeah.
Cats have amazing hearing.
Yes.
I think people underestimate the hearing. I think I have read that they have the best
Mhm.
in terms of frequencies from
They
low
do.
to high of any land mammal, better than
They do.
elephants. Now, bats are a mammal, but they're in air.
Yeah.
I'm not counting bats and moths.
Yeah.
Yeah, cats have amazing, they can hear a mouse underground
Mhm.
move, right?
Yeah.
I want an example story. People never believe this, but Henry, who was my search cat, was sleeping next to me while I was working one night, sound asleep. He suddenly woke up, jumped up, looked out the front window. There was an orange cat walking on concrete, just walking past.
Mm,
How Henry was inside, this cat's outside, and it woke him up out of his sleep. How do you hear cat paws on
yeah. I wonder if he smelled him too. Because they also have such a good sense of smell, but who
They do
knows?
have a good sense of smell. It's probably a combination of both,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's truly ma
yeah. What kind of behavioral clues can help you predict where a cat might be? Like, how do you go about figuring out where somebody might be hiding?
well, it starts with, is this cat indoor or out?
Mhm.
Indoor and got out, they're gonna be hiding more likely under something.
Right.
An outdoor cat that goes missing is probably stuck somewhere.
Mm,
Outdoor cats aren't, as skittish and hiding of everything because they're used to their routine and
right.
a lot of times they have a patrol and they
Mhm.
go here and they check this and sniff that.
Yep.
But a lot of times cats that are outdoor get curious, like, I've never been in this garage before. Let me
Mm,
check it out. Or this shed, someone's doing yard work and the shed's wide open and they're, oh, I haven't claimed this is mine yet. Let me go in.
right.
And then they get closed up and shut in, like Steve did in that
Yeah. In
basement.
the basement, the
Ugh,
grody basement.
horrible.
Yeah.
Eh,
So gross.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of it is whether they're indoor, outdoor, skittish, timid. But then there's
Mhm.
also factors like you got to look at what was the weather doing? What time of
Mm.
day was it? Wind is very disorienting to cats.
Yeah.
I would say more so than rain.
Huh.
Wind is worse. They can't hear as well. They don't have their sense of smell because the wind
Mm,
is disrupting everything. So the weather's important, population density, are you urban? Are you in the city or the country? How many people, how many cars? A cat that's lost in an apartment complex is a whole different case than a cat that's lost out in the country, obviously.
sure.
So all of those factors go into kind of analyzing the highest probability and where to look and
Right.
how to.
That makes sense. Is there behavioral research that has like influenced how you approach finding a lost cat, or is it just everything that you've just kind of learned as you go?
Well, it's both. It's both.
Right.
A lot of what I do has been informed by studies there are not a lot of studies on lost cats.
Right.
More people seem to be interested in dogs. There have been two good studies.
Mhm.
Sample sizes weren't huge, but still it's something. I've also really been influenced by tracking, being
Yeah.
able to find tiny little clues and start to form a database on what cats typically do. For an example,
Mhm.
indoor cats, when they get out, based on the fur clues and footprints and things that I've seen, paw prints, they generally will go around the perimeter of a building. They're not going out in a straight line. They're not running across the street. They're going all the way around the walls first. That's kind of what they do first. Sometimes they're looking for a way to get back in. And if they can't get back in, then the next thing is where's the dark place to hide? And I have found a lot of times an indoor only cat that gets out is more prone to go downhill if they have a choice.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm not sure why that is. No one studied that,
Yeah.
but I do see a trend that they often head downhill if, it's equal in terms of bushes. Like they're not going to go
Right.
downhill if it's a wide open space. They're more likely to go uphill if there's a lot of bushes.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe downhill feels less exposed somehow, or more hidey since they're predators and prey and they're surprise predators. So maybe the downhill just feels somehow
Yeah, it's
more
also
hidden.
easier to move downhill,
Yeah.
and people tend when they've got 2 ways to go, they tend to go downhill. Sometimes it's path of
Huh.
least resistance.
Yeah. That's fair. That's so interesting. That's cool. That's a lot to think about just right there. Are there other patterns in your data about the distance that they tend to travel, like indoor cats when they get out?
Yes, there was a really good study, um, by Professor Lord, and then there was another one, Elizabeth, and the data is conflicting and it doesn't
Mhm.
really agree with my experience either.
Are these those studies that were done in England?
England and Queensland, Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can send you, these are really interesting, but it really bugs me when they say, well, there were 2 cats that were found so far away that we threw out that data
Yeah.
because there's no way a cat could travel that far. Well, maybe they got accidentally transported, and you still need to include that because
Right.
it does happen. And I guess they thought it would skew the median or mess up
Yeah,
the
it's
data
gonna
too much.
to do a good statistical analysis, you do have to throw out the outliers, but I understand also why you should not. And maybe adding in a separate analysis for those outliers would make use of that data because I agree with you, it should still be used, but I also understand why they couldn't include it, in the statistical analysis.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. That's frustrating.
Yeah, and I would love to see a study on how many cats get transported because
Yeah.
now when I was learning lost cat behavior and how to profile cats to, like the FBI profiles
Mhm.
missing persons, I really thought, there are 8 probabilities of what could happen to the cat. You know, lost is translates down, he could be stuck and trapped, he could be dead, he could just be hiding in silence, he could have been taken by a predator, but
Mhm.
transported is one. And I
Yeah.
remember learning and thinking, oh, that's so unlikely statistically. How many cats are going to get in a car? But it's not that
It's not. Yeah.
they're not jumping into like an open window. They're climbing up under usually SUVs
Mhm.
that have those platforms of space underneath them.
Right.
And when the car starts, this is why I ask in profiling, what does your cat do when there's a loud noise? Do they freeze or do they
Mhm.
run? And a lot of cats will just freeze in place, especially if it's, raining or a dog chased them under the car. They're not about to come out into the jaws of a dog. And they'll just freeze and the car starts and starts moving. And they're like, oh my God, this is scary. And then the car comes to a stop and they think, oh, it's over.
Right.
And then the car starts again and they start to panic and eventually they will jump out. Some cats will jump at what I have found very interesting to me is at the 3rd stop. Not every time, but I do see data that shows it's often the 3rd place the car paused,
Mhm.
turned, or stopped. And I think it's because the 2nd time the car stops, they're like, I gotta jump. I gotta get out of here. And I haven't worked
Right.
up the nerve yet. But the 3rd time they're like,
Enough.
I see a
Yeah.
trend here. I'm gonna go for it. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
I had a client a few years ago who came to me for help with socializing. She worked in a warehouse for like construction material, and the cat had ended up being transported to their warehouse in one of their trucks in like I feel like they were like big concrete tubes or it was something that the cat had been transported like halfway across the country on a flatbed in this construction material and arrived like bedraggled and obviously freaked out and she was caring for the cat in the warehouse just trying to get him to calm down and then eventually adopted him and he now lives happily with her, but that was the first case that I remember hearing of a cat being accidentally transported, and he wasn't microchipped, there was no way to figure out where did this cat come from. But it was an interesting case that I had just in my own clinical practice of this actually happening. Are there common, like, behavior mistakes that people make when they're searching? What dumb things do we do as humans when we're looking for our cats?
We tend to just walk around calling, shaking treats, we, not including
Mhm.
me, and assuming the cat's gonna come out. Just, "Here I am."
Right.
I think litter box is a dumb thing, for sure,
Mhm.
because you're actually jeopardizing your cat's safety and possibly life. It's also, I think, really bad. I'm seeing a lot of trends lately for just put out a trap.
No.
And I also see people saying, "Search at night with a flashlight, and you can see their eyes." So Both of those can be bad. The trap is kind of like a litter box because you're putting food in your own yard and attracting other cats.
Well, and you're gonna trap all kinds of stuff too.
Yes, all kinds of stuff. And
Yeah.
that stuff that gets trapped, if your cat sees it, it's going to scare them. And then they're going to be like, I'm not going in that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you don't want to invite other animals. Now, if you have a sighting, yes, put up a trap. But putting a trap in your own yard is just inviting, it's kind of like a litter box. You're inviting trouble. So I wouldn't say it's a dumb thing. It's just counterintuitive to what
Right.
people, they don't think it through. Just like calling out a search dog for a lost cat. How many cats are gonna let some, like, panting, drooling dog walk up to them?
Yeah.
They're gonna run further away. So, a lot of things they're not dumb, they're just you gotta think it through from the cat's point of view.
Yeah. That's fair. I just realized we never actually talked about the patterns that you found in the distance traveled. Like, how far do cats usually go? If an indoor cat gets out and is lost, in your data, how far do you find that they typically go?
Well, my data shows 6 well, this is assuming a suburban block.
Yeah.
6 houses in all directions.
Mhm.
Used to I don't know if the data has changed or I just have more of it, but I used to focus on 250 feet radius for an indoor
Mhm.
cat, an outdoor cat, 500. That's kind of my rule of thumb. The
Right.
Queensland study found 17 houses for outdoor access cats was more typical.
Mhm.
And I think indoor was 3 houses. But again, not a huge sample size, not as large as the sample size of my own experience.
Right.
And,
So I
indoor
wonder.
onlys are more likely to get transported too. So,
Yeah.
it really bugs me when I see people say, search with a flashlight at night, which is not a good idea. And they're hiding close by. People are cutting and pasting this advice they picked up from somewhere. And they
That's what
always say
happens. Yeah.
2 to 3 houses. But indoor only cats are often transported because they do hide under cars and they're so scared, especially let's say it's raining.
Mhm.
And the best place they can hide from all the people walking dogs is under car. If it's raining and the water starts running and their feet are getting wet, they go up
Up into the car. Yeah.
into the chassis. Usually it's
Mhm.
a skid plate. For some reason, I have found Toyota RAV4s are especially appealing to cats.
Huh.
They have this like basket in the front that's like perfect, and when the car starts driving, they're not getting wind in their face or anything. They're just in this little sealed little basket of RAV4s. I had a case in Brooklyn where the cat disappeared into a parking lot, and it was the RAV4.
Man.
Anyway, indoor only cats often get transported, and people don't consider that. And they think after, a week or 2 of no sightings, the cat's dead, when actually it could easily be across town.
Right.
And when I work with people and they listen to me and follow up on that possibility, I tell them about the 3 stops in every direction.
Mhm.
A lot of times they find their cat and they're just amazed and astonished because they didn't think that was possible.
Right.
My cat hates cars and would never go near a car. Well, that's if it's running.
Right.
If it's
Yeah.
sitting still and it's near where they want to hide and it's raining or it's windy, cars like a cat cave.
It's true. I have pulled a lot of cats out of a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Just working feral cases and doing rescue work in New York City, I have pulled a lot of cats out of chassis, out of engines, a lot of that. So my experience is that cats love to climb up into a car. So moving on, can you tell me a little bit about your lost cat kit and what's involved?
The Lost Cat Kit was created so that, somebody in another country or another state can sort of have my advice without having to fly me there and,
Right.
hire me in person. So it's basically everything I've learned. I update it about every year, every 2 years.
Mhm.
So the video, it's kind of a show and tell. So the book tells people if you have this kind of cat in this situation, this probability, this is the path to follow. It explains, cat behavior. It's basically a crash course on being your own cat detective. And then the
Mhm.
video shows how I do tracking, how I do my searches, the gear that I use, how to use the gear, how to set up traps and cameras, just little tips they
Right.
feel like I'm there helping them. Because it's a lot. It's a lot to learn
I
when
bet.
you kinda get thrown into it, and it's like, which one should I buy? Gear that you might not ever have thought of to use for cats, like a plumber's borescope and, amplified
Mm,
listening devices, things like that, so that people can kinda get the key equipment they need for whatever their situation is.
okay. That is there a link that people can go to find your lost cat kit? Where do they find this?
It's on my website, Lost Cat Finder,
.com. There it is.
and I think it's under Lost Cat Kit.
Okay. Cool. I will put a link to that also in the show notes for everybody so you guys can find it. And hopefully nobody needs it, but it will be nice to be able to actually post this for people to use.
Yeah,
So
really it's helped thousands and thousands of people who are on the verge of giving up. They're like, "Ugh,
I
I
bet.
can't believe this information." It's beyond the typical stuff that's out there.
Yeah. What clues do you look for that you think most people miss when you're looking for a cat?
Fur.
Ah,
When cats are stressed, they shed like crazy.
it's true.
I'm sure when you've pulled cats out of engines, there was a ton of fur in your hand
Yes,
and left behind. And Sean from Canopy Cats probably knows when a cat's been up
I
a
bet.
tree, clumps of fur on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fur clues are very helpful, and they show me where a cat's been,
Mhm.
where they bedded down sometimes, so I know this is where they're sleeping. A lot of times cats will have one hiding place in the day and one at night,
Mm,
and they move between the 2 usually, in the wee hours. But yeah, fur people just don't notice fur. When they're searching for their cat, they're looking for their whole cat. They're looking
right.
for the cat's body, and they're not seeing little things like, unfortunately, sometimes I have had coyote cases and there's nothing but fur left, but the person was
Yeah.
walking past it every day because 'cause they're looking for their cat, and they didn't see.
See the yeah.
Yeah, but fur also shows me, even if it's just he went through these bushes,
Mm,
gives you a direction of travel. You can analyze and see if it's your cat or another cat, if you look at it closely. Fur, paw prints, sometimes I'll find a poop pile. You can see the little scrape marks.
mhm.
I always ask people when I'm working with them, does your cat cover their poop in the litter box or do they just kind of leave it there and jump out? That's also a good clue. But yeah, fur, paw prints. I look and see, what the weather was that day, but also, are there any lost dogs? Are there any loose dogs that could have chased your cat?
Mm,
And on Nextdoor, often you'll be able to go through the post and see who lost a dog, how close to you are they, has the dog been recovered, was the dog out loose while your cat was missing? All of those are really kind of, detective work clues that most people don't think to do.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are really interesting. The fur thing is very interesting. That totally makes sense. And
Yeah,
the
fur
track
is an amazing clue if people
yeah.
slow down and look for it. Another one is claw marks on fences. You can see if you look at a fence carefully, like a wooden fence, not chain link, but you can see like where the cat stepped over a rail and their tummy fur
Mhm.
got caught. You can see when they go under a fence, I'll see like a smooth place in the dirt. And then if I put my flashlight on the bottom of the fence, I'll see a couple of hairs clinging. Claw
Yeah.
marks. If the cat jumped over a fence, you see where their little hind claws dug in at, it's usually about 12 inches below the top of the fence, and you can see where they jumped. Let me just ask about Steve.
Oh yeah.
When
Mhm.
this happened with the fence, how
Yeah.
old was he?
Oh, he was barely a year, I think. He
Mm.
was quite young. So that's why I think he was still like a kind of a teen and inexperienced. And that's, I think, why it never happened again. Once, it happened the one time he learned, and then he was much more careful after that.
Yeah. You know, something I learned from vets is that most cats that are hit by cars are young males.
Makes sense.
And, they're like an 18-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Nothing can hurt me, taking
Mhm.
risks, often unneutered. They're crossing
Yeah.
streets and doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
Between like 1 and 2 years old is kind of the range.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, and I think this applies to all mammals. Is that I forget the statistic, but I think it's like 51% of births are males versus 49. It's a tiny percentage, but it's enough because there is that extra percentage of males of any mammalian species is going to act up in a stupid way and get themselves killed.
Yeah.
But it's true. That's what happens. They act up. They take too many risks. They do something stupid. They take themselves out of the gene pool so that by the time they reach sexual maturity and it's time to start mating, there are now an equal amount of males and females
Interesting.
that are available in the gene pool, like circulating of the same age group.
Hmm.
Do you find that people think that a microchip is also a tracker?
Yes. But yes. I think
Yes.
some people don't microchip their cat because they don't want it to be tracked. They're just so suspicious of microchip. Now, Bill Gates is getting in my life.
It's tracking my cat.
Like they care about cats in the first place.
I know. The government's gonna track where my cat is. It's so funny. Love that
Or they're going
idea.
to eavesdrop on me through my cat.
Through my cat's neck.
Yeah. Through my cat's flesh.
Meanwhile, the person's walking around with one of these,
Yes.
like the government's listening to me through my cap, but I've got this next to me at all times. But it's not through this that I always have on my person. This is not the mechanism.
All right. So, yes, there is still a huge um, misconception about microchips. When I moved to Texas, the person I was living with, my cat got out within one of the first few nights because he had left the
Ugh,
door open.
no.
It was like, oh, we don't have to worry. He's microchipped. You can just track where he goes. And this was what I thought was an educated pet owner.
Ugh.
Now, granted, this was 2004, but still. Yeah, people still think microchips are tracking
Yeah.
devices. It's ID only, and only if it's scanned. If someone
Mhm.
first has to find the cat
Well, you have to register it,
and register
and
it,
then
right?
yeah,
And then if the cat is microchipped and someone does find it, they have to catch the cat. That's hard enough on its own, but especially by a stranger. And then transport the cat to, a Banfield or a vet and
mhm,
ask them to scan it. I kind of wish vets, so many people, I think it's 35% of cats owned were found or obtained because they just showed up one day.
yeah,
A lot of those were someone else's cat. And when they take that cat he chose us. He just showed up
right.
and wanted to come in. Vets aren't required to scan cats, a new patient.
They're not?
Nope, they're not required to scan a new cat. They will if you ask them to, but most people don't.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it takes 3 seconds. I wish vets were required to scan new
Yeah.
patients because so many cats that were lost, they're crying at the next door neighbors and they let him in.
Yeah.
He's our cat now. But yeah, so think about all the variables to identify a cat with microchip. Or, he finally shows up at a shelter after you've stopped searching and you never registered your chip.
Yeah.
They're not magic. They're just purely ID. And yes, people do think that there are somehow tracking devices.
Yeah, I've had a few clients who have thought that as well, and I found that interesting. What do you think about putting actual trackers on cats? Like the tracking collars and like the little things that you can put on your cat.
Um, I was super excited. I've tried so many of those when I had
Same.
Henry.
Yeah.
And when I took my cat Henry out on lost cat cases, I had not only uh, a GPS tracker on him, but also RFID. Radio frequency, I think, is in some cases better. than GPS because,
Yeah.
GPS tracker is relying on satellites that can't see your cat under a car or
Right.
underground in a storm drain, but the RFIDs do. So I used both. RFIDs are much smaller too.
They
You
are.
get those
Yeah.
little tiny ones. I was really excited when AirTag came out
Mm,
and designed collars to hold everybody has them now, but
yeah.
I think AirTags are pretty good depending on where you live. You need to be in a, population where other people have iPhones for
Right.
work. It's not gonna work on 15 acres probably.
No, it's not. It's not.
But I also like that the AirTags are round. A lot of the
Mm,
who designed this GPS tracker that's square that's gonna poke the cat in the neck, you know?
yeah.
I thought AirTags were a great idea, but I can't tell you. I mean, I could tell you if I looked it up, how many cases I've had of cats that got lost with an AirTag on. And the AirTag, it gives a person a sense of confidence that they can just let their cat out anytime to go
Mm,
anywhere because they'll always know where they are. But the collar came off or
sure.
the tracker, the battery died. But I've had a few cases where the cat's collar was found and based on another clue I look at is maps of a person's area.
Mhm.
And are there power line easements? Are there water sources? Are there creeks? Are there railroad tracks? Those are all indicative of coyote presence. Coyotes travel power lines like, Coyote Highway. There are no fences. It's
Right.
easy access. There's wildlife. Same for train tracks and creeks. So I guess to answer your question, what do I think about them? They can give people a false sense of security.
Mhm.
I have found more people find cats with the RFID, the radio frequency chips,
Mhm.
because, the cat could be next door in a garage and
Right.
that will find them, whereas the GPS won't.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
it varies. Yeah.
So, what are the first 2 or 3 things that people should do within the first hour after their cats go missing? Or cat goes missing. I don't know why I pluralized that.
Yeah. Hopefully only one went missing.
I know, just the one cat.
The first thing to do is search every inch of the house. And, I told you the story about the cat that got locked up in the blanket chest.
Yes.
So when I say every cubic inch, you got to look inside things, under things. You got to even look at under the dishwasher. Nobody realizes there's behind the refrigerator. Cats can get behind and under refrigerators, and their collars can get tangled up in the coils. So all of those, seriously, every cubic inch. Post on Nextdoor because you want, just your neighborhood. And I would talk to in person every neighbor, at least 2 houses adjacent to you all the way around.
Okay.
Those would be get those done quickly right away. Don't worry about
Right.
Facebook and posters and all that. Do
Okay.
those things first.
I
There are a lot of scams going on with lost pets
mm,
and people preying on the owners.
yes.
On my website, I have a list of the common scams to avoid. And unfortunately, people don't go, I wonder if I ever lose my pet, if I'll get scammed. So, a lot of
Yeah.
times they've already been scammed. Only respond to people who can send a picture. If someone says, I've got your cat, but I need $500 for the vet because he got run over, all those are.
Ugh, I that reminds me of when Steve got lost and I, like, immediately papered the neighborhood in flyers because I was so terrified and upset. That night, all these because these teens kept calling me, I guess they just thought it was, like, a funny prank, and they called and they were just like, "Oh, your cat's been hit by a car, he's in the middle of the street, blah, blah, blah," and I could tell it was a prank because 'cause they're just dumb teens, but I got so many calls like that. It's just like, "What is wrong with you guys?" It's
What
so
is wrong with
awful, like,
people? Yeah.
what an awful thing to do to somebody, like,
Yeah. It
terrible.
probably happens to most owners.
Yeah.
Not only the scams, but the pranks and just
Yeah.
mess. You shouldn't be letting your cat out. Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
He escaped. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very sad. I would love to talk about Henry.
Yes,
So
please.
Henry was so special and he was my Steve, right?
Mm,
And as far as I know, he's the only cat that's ever been trained to track cats.
mhm.
But I also want to talk about him because I really wanted to carry on his legacy.
Of course.
he was 20 when he died, and he was still just as friendly and fearless and carefree and sweet as ever. Um, Part of the reason I want to talk about him is I do think there are other cats, I haven't found one yet, that can be trained
Hmm.
to track lost cats. And I want to start teaching people how to do it. I've
That is a great idea.
never revealed my secrets of how I trained him. It started with clicker training, but then it goes way
Hmm.
beyond that. But I would love to help. I want to leave a legacy and have other cats help cats because everybody wants to train their dog to find
Yeah.
cats, but it's really not, it doesn't make sense. It's not a great idea.
No,
If you're going to train a dog, train them to find lost dogs or maybe tortoises. They can't run from a dog very well.
that's true. Is there a problem with lost tortoises?
My first case after I was trained on the, missing persons procedural used for pets was a
Hmm.
giant African tortoise. His name was Lightning Bolt, 300 pounds, 350 pound gigantic. And my next door neighbors had a llama farm. This was in Texas, and different neighbor than the Mr. Purr rancher.
Mm.
And Lightning Bolt had escaped the night before, and I tracked him. I found him. He had gone, and it's easy to track a huge tortoise because they
Yeah.
mash the grass down
Right.
where they go. And he had crossed my pasture where my horse was and gone down a hill towards a dry creek bed, and he rolled, and I found him upside down at the bottom of the hill. Yeah. It took 3 of us to turn him over
I bet.
and then get him in a golf cart to get him back home. But yeah. That was my first, well, I wouldn't say it's my first professional case because they didn't pay me. I guess
Right.
that's the definition, but it was one of the first cases after I trained. Yeah.
That's so cool. I imagine after that it would be pretty easy for his people to just stick a tracker on top of it. Have that not happen again.
Yeah, this was 2008. I don't know if they had trackers, but
Yeah.
what they did was they stuck a flag, like
Yeah.
an orange flag pole.
A flag, yeah. Yeah. Or you could put a balloon, but I guess that wouldn't last that long.
Not with the trees
Yeah.
into, yeah,
No,
the live
no.
oaks would have popped.
I like the flag is a good idea. So anyway, what traits made Henry such a amazing tracking cat? Like what was it about him, do you think?
He was so fearless. When I met him, before I knew him, I went to a Jackson Galaxy outdoor event in Austin. And I went to get my book signed. Jackson had just come out with his first book. And I had been at the shelter. I was doing like enrichment and clicker training for the shelter cats so they would make eye
Mhm.
contact with visitors. And I had all my clicker stuff in the car. And I'm out walking around and I see this big tuxedo cat lounging in a purple harness out on this grassy hillside, just watching all the kids screaming and the dogs walking by, just chaos. And he's just
Mhm.
cool as can be. But, the light bulb went off and it was like, instead of, I was thinking about getting a bloodhound to help
Mhm.
me with tracking because I was still doing dogs and cats.
Right.
And I thought, why not get a cat who thinks he's a dog
Yeah.
and train him? So I took Henry off to the side and I got my stuff out of the truck, my clicker and treats and stuff. And I wanted to see how scent focused he was. Is he interested in other cats? Is he interested in tracking scent? And he was so
Mhm.
good. I wanted to adopt him on the spot. I'm like, this is the perfect cat for this. It took me a month of begging and pleading because they had a rule if you adopt a cat, you can never let him outside. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have him on a leash. Nope,
Yeah.
can't do it. Took a month of hearing all my vet records, just so that I'm a good animal guardian. Finally, one day after I was on the news, I did an interview on the news, and she called me and said, okay, come get him. So after a month and then probably another 6 months to a year of training, we started doing cases. But yeah, Henry was just so fearless and so friendly and chill, and he loved other cats. He especially loved kittens. He was just curious. He was
He
a,
sounds just like Steve.
yeah, he was,
They sound like exactly the same
they
guy.
do. Also,
Yeah.
he was a peacenik. He didn't want to kill stuff. He just wanted to watch.
Same, yeah. That's so they sound like very much like the same. No.
And people who have cats like that know they're special, but they don't know how
Yeah,
to direct it and, make them a working cat that actually has a job. And I think he loved his
right.
job.
100%.
He used to, when he got a
100%.
chance, he would go sleep in the car. If he saw me, loading my gear into the car, he would go jump and sit in the car waiting for me, like, we're going to go. I only took him, though, on indoor only cat cases.
Yeah.
Because, you gotta have a single scent trail. I want other people to learn to, everybody has adventure cats. Why not, those are the most likely prospects.
How old was he when you adopted him and when you started
He was
working with him?
10, so his
Okay.
personality was, very much already there.
Yeah.
And, I kinda thought, 10 is up there for training a cat, but he just took to it and
Yeah.
he had 10-year career.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you had him for that long.
I took
It's
really
great.
good care of him.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
But yeah, I would love to see other people, and I think, I've kind of worked out how I can do this and, training other people to train their cats.
Yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, I think Henry would like that. I've heard his voice telling me, "You need to do this.
Yeah.
Pass on the
You
torch."
should.
Yeah.
You should. You absolutely should. I think that's a great idea. Okay. So if somebody who's listening to the podcast unfortunately loses their cat tomorrow, what do you think the most important mindset is that they should have while searching?
They need to realize that cats are survivors. Don't give up. Don't make assumptions. Your cat is out there somewhere. Stay determined and positive. Don't wear yourself out. You got to take care of yourself. Use a systematic approach that's tailored to your cat's personality, geography, everything about, whether it's an indoor or outdoor cat, all of those things
Mhm.
need to be targeted to your cat. So don't listen to all the like cut and paste, cookie cutter general advice everyone throws at you on social media. You need to follow
Right.
the appropriate approach for your cat and your situation.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. This was such an important and super interesting conversation. I really love talking to you, and I think this is going to be such a helpful episode for so many people. Hopefully, nobody ever loses their cat ever again.
That would be a great world.
I know, it would be an amazing world, but unfortunately, that probably isn't gonna come true, so I just hope that people are able to use all of your tips, and go to lostcatfinder.com and find your kit, and to be able to just use this episode for help and to share it with people that they know who may have lost their pets.
Yeah.
So thank you so
And
much for being
it's
on the
you're
episode.
so welcome. It's good for people to know that there are cat detectives, that there are people that
Yes,
can help. Yeah. There are pet
I
detectives
agree.
and cat detectives. It's nice that, you can find someone that's more specialized in cats because we know they're very different than dogs.
They are. All right, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks so much for listening to the show. If you're looking for one-on-one support with behavior issues like litter box problems, aggression, anxiety, or multi-cat dynamics, you can find me through my behavior consulting business, Catitude Adjustment, at catitude-adjustment.com. If you like the episode, please consider leaving a rating or review. It really helps us grow. For more episodes, show notes, and resources, head to hissandtellpodcast.com. Huge thanks to Cat Beats for the music, and I'll see you next time.